Smash speculation is exploding again as we may finally have something that will rival the Grinch leak in terms of speculation. A poster on 4chan has dropped both picture and video evidence of Mallow and Doom Mii costumes, and interestingly enough, if you've kept up with the leak scene before, you will notice that Ken Masters is here once again. Now why is that relevant? Well, back before Ultimate's release, Ken was actually leaked by someone using that thumbs up pose and apparently using a dev version of the game. Now back then it was the cause of a lot of speculation with people on both sides. However, in the end it did turn out that that leak was real. So again, in this new leak, we have Ken back once more, so at the very least that is somewhat interesting. Now what is the status on this leak and what are the key talking points? Well, the status as of right now is uncertain, but let's examine those talking points. First up is the game timer in the top corner. It is something to think about. Now back during the Ken leak, the timer was noted to be specifically at 0 to 30 seconds 00, and there were also some additional notes at the bottom of the screen, which is why people said that it was a dev mode of the game, as it would likely contain that type of information and be able to most likely freeze the timer or things along those lines. Now when cross-referencing that with the new leak, the timer is again shown to be at 2:30, both in the photo as well as the video, with the video form having the counter frozen at 2:30 rather than counting down. Now the video of the new leak does not have any of that extra information at the bottom like the Ken leak did, but it's hard to say if that's relevant unless you've actually played the game using the dev mode, since we don't know if that can be hidden or not, but most likely it would have a way of hiding it, I would think. Another thing is to think about the differences in the timer. In the dev mode picture from the Ken leak, the timer is listed with a 0 in front of the 2 for the 2 minutes. However, I went back and checked from the release of the game, and to my knowledge there was never a point where there was a 0 in front of the minute counter. So what does that mean? Well, it's hard to say, but from the videos posted of the leak with the timer frozen, it to me tried to give off the impression that this was in the dev mode of the game, since I don't think there's a way to freeze the timer in the live release mode of the game. So multiple things could be happening with that. 1. The minute counter properties could have been changed since the pre-release version of the dev mode. 2. This new leak could somehow be taking place not in the dev mode. Or even 3, the dev mode could have a way of changing the time settings. A lot of variables are involved with this, so it's hard to say how relevant it is. Now one of the larger talking points is the ability to mod Mii costumes in Smash Ultimate. This is something that has been blowing up all day. So basically from what I've gathered is that the modding community has struggled specifically with the modding behind Mii costumes in particular. Now someone supposedly in the modding community had this to say about the leak. As someone in the Ultimate modding community, this personally has me convinced. The big thing about it is just how differently Mii stuff works in Ultimate versus Smash 4. In Smash 4, Mii outfits directly scaled with the size of the Miis in question, which was a quick and easy way to make sure they all looked decent. However, this wasn't obviously the best solution, as it meant that a lot of Mii costume parts would clip into each other pretty badly and not look great as a result. In Ultimate, they changed that. There's now a specific sizing algorithm for each individual Mii piece in order to prevent that issue from occurring again, at least as frequently. That algorithm is hard-coded into the Mii characters themselves, meaning that in order to find it, you'd have to dig through the entirety of each Mii's code to even get started on the Mii costume mods. And in the video, the hats are on 2 different Mii types, meaning they'd have to do that whole process twice. In addition to that, there's a notorious file size problem that severely limited Ultimate modding so far. If a modded file is bigger than the basic file it's replacing, the game will crash upon trying to load that file. So if you have a 2 MB file and replace it with a 2.1 MB file, the game crashes. This is notable because without the specific tools Sakurai and Co. use to compress these files, modders have a very hard time shrinking their high quality mods down under that limit. That in of itself is why Ultimate modding is so slow. Now consider the fact that Mii costume files are tiny compared to actual fighter files, and it gives serious credence to these high quality modeled hats. If they are modded, they're not only better modded than any Smash 4 Mii costume, they're also several leagues smaller in terms of file size in order for them to even be able to work in Ultimate. So this person seems to think it would be fairly hard to mod something like this in Ultimate as it currently stands. However, that is just one supposed modder's take. From what I have seen though, for people who are saying they are in the modding community, a lot of them have come out in favor of the leak being real. Although there are also some in the modding community that think while hard, it could be possible to mod something like this. User Duster Buster went down a thread where he both modded in a cube with Geese Howard's face on it, and then when facing pushback also continued on to mod in a Doom Guy costume. Now in his own admission, doing this does not prove that the leak is fake, and he thinks it could still possibly be real. He just wanted to show that messing around with Mii costumes can still be done. Now people have been pushing back on him again, saying that modding the helmet is different than modding the Mii costume hats, which in essence makes sense. In Smash Ultimate, if you replace a file with a file of greater data size, it will crash the game. That's why modding a hat is so difficult. A hat is simply the Mii's head plus more stuff. So it's always going to be more data unless you try to replace the head with a compressed copy, which is its own set of issues. This does not, however, apply to helmets, since when a Mii equips a helmet, it doesn't actually render their head, since it can't be seen by the player. That's why helmet mods and full body replacement mods are possible, but a simple hat is not, despite sounding counterintuitive. So that part of it does make sense to me. The helmets are taking the place of the head, whereas hats are added on elements on top of that, so it would certainly be a different modding process. So people are not really counting his efforts towards confirmation unless he was able to also mod a hat piece rather than a helmet. Now I will say I find it interesting that he was able to do all of this modding in basically a few hours. The interesting part about this is that the leaker, if they were modding this, could have been working on this for weeks now or even longer. So is it possible they figured out how to do this new modding process when no one else has? It's definitely possible, whether it's likely or not. In addition to all of that, people are also now debating whether or not the Mallow hat has jiggle physics. Now what is the relevance of that? Well, the argument is that if the hat does in fact have jiggle physics, it's something that would be extreme detail, and a point in favor of it being real, as something like that would be harder to mod in. Now this whole thing reminds me the most of the Grinch League, specifically when people were debating whether or not Skull Kid was, seen in the image. Now personally, I don't see the jiggle in the hat. It just looks more like a turning motion and misdirection due to the fluffs on the hat. However, there are people adamant that they do in fact see jiggling. So this is one of those cases where I chalk it up as meaningless, because without a higher quality, I don't think it's possible to determine whether or not it is actually jiggling with a definite answer. And of course, the discussion wouldn't be complete without looking at what popular leakers around the scene think about this. Sabi's take has been, I'm getting confirmation on if it's real tonight or tomorrow morning. I have to wait for a reply by the guy. Could be fake, but his reaction made me think it's real. Just be patient, unless someone proves they faked it. On top of that, Sabi has said staying 50-50 on the leak would be a wise stance. And Vergabin is still among the missing and has not commented on the leak as of yet. So that is pretty much where the leak stands right now. For me, honestly, it's neither enough proof to say it's real or fake. It is likely though that Sabi's next post will blow the leak open one way or the other. I think some final interesting thoughts to think about are as followed. Even if these costumes are real, it does not confirm that Doom Guy and Geno are playable. They could also be costumes or just not be in the game at all. Personally though, I do think that they would be playable characters if these costumes do turn out to be real. Another point is that the supposed leaker chose to show off these costumes rather than just showing off the characters themselves like the Ken leak did. Some say that Nintendo wouldn't care as much when it's the costumes being leaked as opposed to if it was the actual fighters, but I'm not really so sure on that. Another point is that these have been speculated characters for a while now. Both Geno and Doom Guy have been speculated since before the game even released. And when you consider the Mii costume list that Papa Gino's discussed earlier in the past month or so, it could definitely be someone piggybacking off of that with the Mallow costume in an attempt to match up with that leak. And lastly, it is important to note that there will be an upcoming presentation for Terry on Wednesday. It is interesting that that one will be 45 minutes long. That is way longer than all the other fighter presentations we have had, leading to the point that Sakurai may have a lot to talk about. Now, Sakurai did grow up as a fighting game player, so this could be a nod to Terry by giving him a super in-depth breakdown where he talks about some of his personal memories growing up with the character. However, 45 minutes is a lot, so I don't know what to think of this. The odds are that we get some new info with other things besides just Terry. In fact, we could even see these Mii costumes appear in this trailer like we did with Banjo. That would be wild, as it would really throw people for a loop. So that's about where things are, guys. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of this leak. Is it real? Fake? Do you think we will find out on Wednesday or not? As always, if you want to keep up with future content, make sure to subscribe and notifications on. My social media links are down in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.